Hello and welcome everybody to TruthSeekers Fest. It's exactly 6:04 in India. Let's begin. My name is HR Venkatesh. I'm the Director Training and Research at Boom in New Delhi. And we have a special treat in store tonight, our first Ask Me Anything event. I guess one way of putting it is it's a lot of truth seekers, who we call people who are interested in the stuff we do, asking questions or asking anything of digital detectives. Because that is what, in the end, fact checking is, finding that elusive piece of evidence that nails the lie. Of course, another name that is very common among fact checkers is OSINT. The elongated form is that is OSINT, stands for Open Source Intelligence. And there are those who believe that it should be used in the elongated form because OSINT, the abbreviation, has links to military intelligence. So I guess we're in the business of online open source intelligence. We have with us Jency Jacob, the managing editor of Boom in Mumbai, where we are headquartered. Also with us is Nivedita Niranjankumar, our deputy news editor South, who joins us from Bangalore. We are also going to be joined by Swasti Chatterjee, our deputy news editor from the Bangla team, but there's a huge storm there in Kolkata and she's unable to get electricity. But this is just to show you that we're scattered all over India. And that is the wonderful thing about working in fact checking. We use a lot of tools on the internet. Now, here's how this evening is going to proceed. We'll take questions via Zoom, via the Q&A. We've also got questions from some of our stories on social media platforms that we've harvested, and we're also getting questions directly. And before we say anything more, let me just say this is the third such conversation in the Truth Seekers Fest. The first a couple of Fridays ago was on the idea of truth. We had a keynote address by N. Ram. We also had a panel. The second conversation was on the intersection of technology and misinformation. That was a panel last Friday. And today is our Ask Me Anything. And by the way, we request you to be a Boom member. Our work as fact checkers needs to be sustainable, and your support really is crucial. So with that said, let's begin. Welcome, Jency. Welcome, Nivedita. Before we ask the questions, very quickly, what do you do at Boom, Jency?
Thank you, Venkatesh, for organizing this and also bringing me on this panel. Simple question, what do we do at Boom? We are here to fact check claims that are being made by people in public life, look at social media, look at narratives that are being built on social media, which is extremely harmful sometimes and also dangerous if they are left unchecked and not fact checked in any form. And we also explain issues. So to give you this answer in very simple form, this is the simple definition of what we do day in and day out and what we've been doing over the last nearly 5 years.
Okay. Nivedita, same question. What do you specifically do?
Hi, Venkatesh. Thank you for hosting this. At Boom, I fact check various pieces of fake news, including images, fake videos, viral videos. Additionally, I also do a bit of ground report fact checks, and wherein we look at how how fake news can be have an impact on people. I also manage the team.
Right. Okay. So that's so that people who are logging in from different parts of India and different parts of the world know a little more about what you two do. We have a larger team, of course. My first question, we haven't got any questions yet, but I do have a bunch of questions here that I said that have come from other platforms. So my first question is, how is fact checking different from regular journalism? I'll put that one to you, Jency.
Well, Venkatesh, I have always been saying this since the last few years now that fact checkers are not here to replace regular journalists, because fact checkers are also journalists. Every person who works on the Boom team, starting from me as the editor to probably the newest member on the team, we are all individual professionals who have come from a background in journalism. Either there are newcomers who have just joined in right from college, or have worked in various other publications and have worked with TV channels or various other outfits before they have joined Boom. So basically, to this question about why is fact checking important or how different is it from regular journalism, it is no different, because at the end of the day, we are also doing exactly what probably any regular journalist should be doing. That is looking at the sources of information that you're getting, examining it with data and with facts, and only reporting facts. We don't write opinion. You won't find any opinion on our website unless it's in very stray occasions where we do mark it out as opinion. We will not run anything or publish anything under the garb of it being a news or a fact check in itself. So this is how we differentiate. So anytime you feel that there is a claim that is going around, and you feel that that you really want to know what's the data backing this. Like, is there data to back this? Is there evidence to back this? Like, for example, in the case of COVID, is there scientific evidence to back any claim that is being made either by a medical practitioner or by people who claim to have some expert understanding of what COVID is all about? We would always go back to the original source, look at if there are scientific journals who are writing about it, and examine it and weigh it with the evidence that we have and write a story around it. So our sources are always primary, unless there are cases where it is, where the source that too in very extreme circumstances and in very rare circumstances, where we feel that the story has to be written and the source is not willing to come on record, then we will specify it. But those are very rare occasions. But otherwise, it's plain old, lazy journalism, Venkatesh. There is nothing that we do which probably would suggest that we are heroes in any way. And I want to disabuse the notion that fact checking is any form of activism. It is not. And if anyone is saying that fact checking is activism, then definitely that is not going to last for too long.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're saying that if fact checkers become activists in a sense, they lose their credibility. Okay, Nivedita, you reported for Boom as a fact checker from Kashmir, from New Delhi during the violence during the anti-CAA agitation and so on. So when you go out on the field as a fact checker and not as a reporter, are you looking out for something else? Are you looking for something different? How does your role, how is it different?
So as like Jency said, in fact, there are certain aspects of reporting which do occur in fact checking. And as a ground reporter, the basic things of identifying sources, making sure they are the same, remain constant. But as a fact checker, I look at the impact of fake news. I look at how a piece of misinformation led to riots, led to people beating each other up, and the timeline, establishing the timeline how a WhatsApp message turned into a full-blown riot. That is what I will look at differently from what a reporter from a newspaper or a channel will do as a fact checker, and also the impact that fake news has on people, has on communities, is something that we are always on the lookout of while doing on-ground fact checks.
Okay, so it is different, though the difference can be quite subtle, and people who are not experts may not know the difference. I guess that's one way of looking at it. Renjil has asked us a question, which is a question we kind of advertise really, which is, are fact checkers biased? And if you say we are not biased, how can you say that we are not biased? So, Jency, I'll ask you that.
Well, see, what is bias? Bias is something that that is coming out of your lived experiences in the past, and or any of the baggage that you probably have had in the past about certain ideologies or political understanding, or your preferences for something which is a political party or a government, right? And that's the crux of the issue. Everyone comes down to that itself, right? Like, what is your political affiliation? Who do you back? Which political party are you interested in? Now, these are questions that I think have come about because journalists in the past, and mainstream media in the past especially, have not done justice to the craft of journalism, right? So you write stories which are extremely biased. You don't declare, when you put politicians on the op-ed page, you bat for a certain political narrative In the West, there are publications who do it, but they are very clear about it. And they mention and they talk about the fact that just before an important election, they will definitely call out, they will say that, that probably this politician or this political party is better to form the government during that point of time. In India, we don't do that, but we also do it in a very, hidden manner, right? So, and that is probably the reason why today even fact checkers are often asked this question. Our bias, we have to be judged on the fact that whether we are biased or not based on the stories we write. Do we have opinion in our stories? Do we use adjectives, and do we use some form of narrative journalism that we write, in which we are often always looking at only at trying to trying to mention about some political party, or we are only fact checking one side of the political divide. These are some of the factors that readers should always keep in mind when they look at our stories. If you find there is a constant bias, feel free to call out fact checkers and point it out to us. Maybe sometimes it might be an unconscious bias, but that's a bias that that can be easily be corrected. But otherwise, do we allow any form of bias to come into our stories? We don't, because we fact check every part of the political spectrum, no matter which you're on the left wing, you're on the right wing. We report and we write stories about all of them and any claims that are made. There may be states where there are different political parties in power. We also look at them. We also look at the statements that they make, and we report on it. That's the best that we can do, rather than, and these questions will always remain, Venkatesh. It's unfortunately, it's the way, we have been practicing, a lot of journalists have been practicing and doing and writing stories over a period of time. And there's beyond a point, you cannot address this question all the time, but we have to be judged based on the stories we write over a long period of time. That is what I would always tell my readers to do.
Right. Okay. We're getting more questions, but just to add to what Jency said, I mean, one of the things that struck me, and Nivedita, Jency, correct me if I'm wrong, is that unlike traditional journalism, the burden of proof is higher on fact checkers, in that not only do we have to say whether this is true or false or misleading or whatever label we choose, but we also have to demonstrate it. That is, we have to give evidence in the story itself. And the idea is that anybody else who follows the same steps as us, who has access to the very same tools, can also come to the same conclusion. So I guess it's closer to what they call the scientific process than to traditional journalism.
Well, I would agree. And that's exactly the process that we follow, Venkatesh. Anytime any reader picks up a fact-checking story that Boom has written, we always mention our sources. We always mention where did we get it from. Like, we always have this line, and it's sometimes it looks like, a very repetitive line to our readers, but there's a reason why we put that. We say that, Boom did a reverse image search, or Boom contacted X, Y, or Z, or we say that Boom went and found, looked at some sources and where we found this. We always mention our sources. It cannot be that, anyone looks at our story and tries to follow the step, and at the end, they come to the conclusion that, okay, probably I'm missing on something. This is not what my conclusion is. If the reader comes to that kind of a conclusion, then probably we are doing something wrong. And right. I would like to take this platform to ask our readers to always come back to us if they feel that they have read a fact check story and the claims that we make, that we do put our sources. If at the end of the story, if you don't reach the same conclusion, feel free to write to us and ask us about it.
Right. Okay. So let's start tackling the other questions. I'm going to choose an order, not in the order that's based on when the question's been asked, for certain reasons. Idris has asked 3 questions. Jency, I want you to think about the first question, which is, was fake news as prevalent in pre-social media era as it is now? Think about it while I go to Nivedita. Now for the third question from Idris, which is, does fact-checking take a mental toll on your team? And what are the coping mechanisms for it?
That's a very good question. Fact-checking does take a mental toll on the team and everyone who works on any piece of fake news, especially when it involves violence, lynching, or graphic images. they do, looking at them constantly to figure out a clue or to figure out the location, that can take a mental toll. We have internal mechanisms, including giving a trigger warning, or if the person who's not working on the story, them not having to look at it. And one, apart from the workplace mechanisms, I as personally would switch off and go watch something really lighthearted on TV or Netflix, and not watch news for a few hours, not read anything about news for a few hours. Those are, and read a book, very lighthearted, not not connect to the reality in some way. Those are my internal coping mechanisms.
Yeah, I guess everyone has the way of coping, and increasingly, from what I've seen, journalists and fact checkers, we need professional help as well. There's a term for it, which is secondary trauma, or you can use the other term, vicarious trauma as well, which is when you keep looking at those images, like Nivedita said, images and videos of the worst things, in order to kind of look at it very closely to find out whether it's true or not. It affects you in some way. And I've read elsewhere that there are other fact checkers who look at, they have to systematically, like, sort of not focus on the emotional content, but the objects. So somewhere I read that a fact checker looks at objects on the screen and not focuses too much on what the emotions, what human beings are experiencing on the screen of the image or the video. So there are other ways of dealing with it. Jency, that question about fake news being prevalent, was it prevalent before?
That's a good question from Idris, Venkatesh, and that's a question that often comes to us as well. And one cannot say that misinformation did not exist earlier. Now, I'm being very careful in using the word misinformation. And Idris, the reason why I'm not mentioning the word fake news is because fake news has been weaponized by politicians and political leaders and political parties to discredit journalists and the work that we do. So that is the reason why we don't call it fake news. Now, what is misinformation? Misinformation can be, in multiple ways. There is misinformation where sometimes, journalists have written stories which have found to be untrue, or probably they have overstepped on the source that they had and projected something which was not true. And there have been corrections that have had to be issued for that. Yes, readers and viewers can definitely have this feeling that for a long period of time, there was no one who was making mainstream media accountable. And that's where social media came in, right? So social media came in and democratized the way information is being sourced right now. Today, no one can say that we are going to break this news probably on a news channel or in a newspaper or even on a digital news site. More often than not, what happens is that someone is breaking that story or that information on Twitter or on Facebook or probably on Instagram. So in many ways, the advent of social media has meant that there is definitely a lot of accountability to what journalists do today. Today, if suppose someone goes on air or any of us tweet out something which is incorrect, there are an army of fact checkers probably on social media who will point it out to us, with sources, with evidence, with data, and will tell us that that it is not true. So that is the
Right.
good side of probably what social media has done. But to answer your question very briefly, does this mean that pre-social media or probably pre-2010, 2008 or 2007, was there no fake news or no misinformation? No, that's not true. It was definitely there, but not spreading in the manner in which it has in the post-Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp era. And today, it can spread like wildfire, as we've seen in many cases.
Right. I must also add that not just social media, but in the last 10 years, the availability of smartphones in almost every person's hand, also internet, the data becoming cheaper and cheaper has made everyone a publisher, which had been the case anyway with the dawn of the internet. But everyone is a publisher. So therefore, anyone can negate anybody else's, and anyone can say this is fake news, or, anyone can ask questions, and anybody, even the most extreme person, can build up a following on the internet because of the internet. So yeah, these are the ground realities under which we work. Idris has asked another question, which I guess I'll ask you right now, and then go on to the other questions. Jency, is from which political ideology, left, right, center, do we get more fake news from? That's a question, and someone else asks a somewhat similar question, but we'll come to that a little later.
Venkatesh, see, that question is dependent on what is the probable narrative at that point of time, right? Like, suppose if it's in India specifically, over the last decade or so, we have seen that the right wing has been extremely popular in pushing out social media narratives that many times are bordering not just on the they're not just misinformation, but they are disinformation, where you know that what you're saying on Twitter or spreading on WhatsApp is not true, and it can have an adverse effect, but you still go ahead and do it because you want to serve a particular political ideology. So the right wing definitely spreads a lot of misinformation. There's no way to say that in any manner which can sugarcoat it, but it does not mean that there is no misinformation on the left from those who proclaim to be from the left wing, or those who proclaim to be anti-right wing. There are people who also do that. There are political parties across the political spectrum, depending on which state election is happening, or which which political party probably is in power or in the opposition. We have fact-checked them all, and they come from all sides of the divide. And that's why the quality of information that is being given out online by political parties, by handles of political parties, and also by supporters of political parties, they need to improve. Only when that quality of information improves will we see definitely people frowning on the fact that those who are in power, those who probably are in a position of responsibility and accountability, giving out, speaking stuff which are not backed by data. That kind of accountability has to come.
Okay. Jatin, had asked a question and he said, my question springs from what Nivedita said. Does fact-checking fake news mean you don't check claims on social media, or is it just a lazy usage for any falsehood, whether or not it is fake news? And Jatin later on just said that you have already answered his question in a way. But we'll come back to it, Jatin, in a bit, because there's a part I think that'll be interesting. Let's see if you have the time, we'll come back to it in a bit. Nivedita, I want to ask you, as someone who does this fact-checking on a daily basis, how automated or technical is it? I mean, what you do? Is it as simple as, let's use a computer program or an algorithm, which is essentially a computer program? Do you use, so that's a question by someone who is anonymous.
So we do use tools, but there is you cannot take away the human aspect, the human brain aspect out of it. To even if there is a tool which gives us tags, or helps us identify what possible locations it could be, we use those clues and then we run a search to see if they match. It is not fully automated. I won't say it's fully automated, and removing that human element out of fact checking, I'm not very sure how we can go on, because even you may see a video, you may see an image, and you may think that these are the 5 locations it could be, but to run the check and eliminate the 4 which could be wrong, you need a human element, you need a reporter, you need a fact checker to do that, to identify and match and eliminate the wrong clues. And so I would say that it is technical, yes, but not automated fully.
Okay.
To answer the question.
That makes absolute sense. It is technical, but not necessarily automated. Okay, so we have more questions coming in. Jency, how do you decide what to fact check? Anonymous again asks, how do you differentiate opinion from fake news? And before you start answering that, I want to prime Nivedita for another questions. Atul Pandey asks, what are some online tools which the readers can use themselves to fact check an article or news source? So while you think about that, Jency, I'm going to come back to you. How do you decide what to fact check, what not to fact check? And then how do you differentiate opinion from fake news?
Yeah, that's a good question, because see, we have publicized 2 helpline numbers in the past, and we continue to publicize those numbers. We want readers to send us the misinformation or or claims that they feel are suspect to that they should send it to us, so that we take a look at it and we decide how to whether we want to fact check it or not. Now, how do we decide what to fact check? Now, that's the question. You can only decide to fact check if you have all the evidence in play. For example, if there is a video which is going viral where some claim, a communal claim is being made. Probably the claim is that the perpetrator is from one community and the victim is from another community. Now, these are actually sum total of a lot of the videos that we fact check. Now, for me as a fact checker or for my team, the job is to find out whether the claim that has been given in the text or in the video or in the audio, are they true or not? So what do? We call up the cops and we find out whether a case has been filed. And more often, they tell us, they give us the FIR number. They tell us, what is the, whether FIR has been filed or not. They also tell us, sometimes in very sensitive cases, they don't tell us the names of the accused and the victim, and we understand that, but we take it on record from them whether, the claim that is being made that a person is from one community and the victim is from another community, is that true or not? There have been many cases where we have found that both the accused and the victim are from the same community, but the claim was being made otherwise. Now, these are the ways that we look at it. Now, what do we not fact check? Now, that's not a very easy question to answer. We don't decide that we don't want to fact check a particular story because it, and I'll tell you where this question comes from. This question comes from the fact that do you play on your biases when you decide not to fact check something? Let me assure our readers, we never take a decision like that. Our decision is only taken on the fact whether we have all the evidence to give you 100% proof that what we are writing and what we are publishing is true. And when you read through it, you will reach the same conclusion. Venkatesh, right. Many of our readers don't know that there are so many stories that are probably lying in our backend, which have come to about 90-95% of providing the evidence, but because we had that 5% doubt that maybe there could be this angle to it, or probably could be something that we don't know, or the fact that we don't have a primary source who's spoken to us, despite the fact that our fact checker and our reporter and the editor is completely sure about the fact that the story is true. We have decided not to publish those stories. And there are many such stories which we haven't published, and we have let it go only because we felt that we wouldn't be able to do justice both to the story and to the reader.
Yeah, in a way, I suspect you've answered another question that's come in the Q&A box by Anonymous, which is, have you ever faced a situation when you have not been able to fact check something that you know is fake, but you cannot prove it? So I guess you answered that question, Jency. Maybe we'll come back to a similar question a little later. We'll also try and give you specific examples of stories and fact checks, but we'll bring that in a little later. Nivedita, back to that question, what are some online tools which readers can use themselves to fact check an article or a news source?
So there are fact check an article. The simplest thing would be to first check whether others have reported it also, and is it just a single news outlet reporting it? If there are others who've reported it, that is the first check. The second would be to check elements in the story. Now, if there's an image that has been used, so then reverse image search for that. If there's a video that's been used, then there's a tool called Invid, which you can add on your Google Chrome box. You can go and add it. Then the third tool, which I swear by and use a lot, is Magnifier. It seems like a very common tool, which is in all laptops, but it has helped us a lot in looking for a signboard or a location or a number plate, to confirm which area the video or the image could be. And Google Translate. It may seem like a very commonly available app, but it's a very, very useful tool for fact checkers. These are the four that I would swear by.
I guess that also answers Samurdeen's question, which is the best tool, fact check, best tool please suggest, he asks. And I guess you said your favorite tool is Magnifier. And that's the thing about, that's the thing about fact checking, right? It's not, in 80% of the cases or 90% of the cases, it's not rocket science, though it gets very, very technical, very, very fast in these exceptional cases. And if you have the time, because no one's asked that question, I'll ask you, what are those other complicated tools or complex tools but it's all about really using every commonly available tool, including, for example, Google Maps or any other map software. Okay. Jency, I'd like you to take a look at the chat box, not the Q&A box. There is a longish question asked by Colonel K. Thamaya Udupa. And he says, I think you answered a bunch of these, but are there some types of facts, he asks, that are not fact-checked by Boom? And then there is also an observation about his experience on our website. He says sometimes he sent a few forwards, he hasn't received any response. And he's also asking if it's because it falls in a category where it's already been fact-checked by you, or is it because your hands are already full? And he also says this is not a complaint, but an observation, something like that. So if you can address that, or if you need a little bit of time, let me also just say that there are a bunch of other questions. And again, I have not asked these questions in the order in which that they've been answered because of there are specific reasons, because I'm trying to arrange these questions theme-wise. Okay.
Venkatesh, I can answer that question.
Go for it.
Yeah, so Colonel Thamaya's question is very valid. And this is a complaint sometimes we get from readers. I would just like to assure the Colonel that we do take all the forwards that come to us very seriously. At the end of the day, they are our sources, right? Our readers are the ones who are helping us do our job day in and day out, and ensuring that, that we are always on top of every piece of misinformation that is put out. Now, unfortunately, it's a small team. We have limited resources. It may have happened that if he has sent us something that may have got buried under, a lot of the forwards that come to us, which may have been prioritized on that particular day. But I'm happy to receive, some of these forwards from Colonel Thamaya on my email. Our emails are available on our in our contact us box as well. And you can write to us, Colonel Thamaya, and we will definitely give you a reply, even if we are not able to fact check that story because of various other editorial reasons. And those editorial reasons have nothing to do with bias, but it only has to do with evidence and facts and whether it can be published or not.
Okay. Colonel, I hope your question was answered to your satisfaction. Jency, I'll come to you in a moment again. I want to again prepare you for this question, which is, who is funding the fact check? That's a question by Murali Krishna. And before you answer that, let me go to Nivedita. Anonymous asks right at the very end of the Q&A, do you face online abuse if you fact check something that a majority of people have already believed? How do you deal with that?
Online abuse is a part of a journalist and a fact checker's job, especially with our profiles public on most social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Unless you have really, really hidden it well, it comes with each story you do. Online abuse, I think a lot of my bosses, Jency and others, have faced it more. At certain occasions I have, but I guess my name protects me. I'm being very honest here. My name does protect me from a lot of online abuse. When it does happen, I try not to check Twitter. That is as cliched, as boring as it sounds. I try not to check Twitter. I try not to log in. I try not to reply. It's very difficult to not reply or give it, answer back to somebody who's clearly insulting you or pointing questions at, pointing fingers at your story. But we also need to remember that it's like giving ammunition to somebody who all they want to do is come there and abuse you. They don't want to do anything. They may not have even read your story. They'll just read the headline and think that, it's against what they believe. So not replying, ignoring is the best mantra that I have realized it is.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. Jency has his hand up.
Yes, the best abuse that I get is actually a single word. That is, rise back. That's the best that that people can come back at me for. Whenever we put out a story which people don't like, immediately I find members of the right wing coming and saying, shut up, you rise bag, and many, there are many friends of mine who have asked me this question offline. They've asked me, what does this rise bag mean? And I keep telling them, that this is a slur that many of the right wing members of on social media, they throw at anyone who has a Christian name or a surname. So, but we live with this. I mean, it's something that we have made our peace with. We don't respond to trolls and online abusers. We don't respond to them in any form. We are not out there to battle them. We are out there to do our job and to put out our stories and to practice, journalism. And that's what we are known for. And that's what we will do. And Boom is known exactly for fact checking and to push out stories with evidence and based on facts and data. We are not here to fight any battle with any political party or with any members of the right wing or the left wing or any wing as they may be from the political spectrum. So it does not matter beyond a point what they call us and abuse us. And we will handle it the way it comes. And that's the best way for any journalist to probably deal with any form of trolls or online abuse.
Okay, before you answer the next question, Jency, I want to give Shubham's question to Nivedita for her to mull over. Right on top of the chat box, there have been many questions regarding adverse effects of corona vaccine that have been around the country that the Indian mainstream media does not cover. What is your role in it? Of course, it's worth pointing out that we also have a health misinformation specialist. We have her as well, Shachi, and we'll come back to that question. But Nivedita, just be prepared to answer that question. Back to you, Jency. Who is funding the fact check? That is Murali Krishna's question.
So, Venkatesh, to answer Murali's question, we are a media company, and we are a media company which is, and our sources of revenue are multiple sources, and these sources are technology platforms with whom we work on very specific contracts, and Facebook and like Facebook and many others. We also have media literacy programs where we work with institutions who give us grants. That's another source, and these are multiple sources that we work on. There is no mystery to the fact that who's funding the fact check. The question when it is asked, it probably presupposes that there is some hidden source of funding that is coming to us. All our funding is transparent. Our numbers are available with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, where our company is registered, and anyone who wants to know, they can go and check, take out a balance sheet there and check out where our funding comes from. So there is no hidden mystery to this question. I do know that there are many people who ask us this question offline, online, everywhere, and it's a boring answer, and this is the only answer that probably we can give.
That's fantastic. Nivedita, before I come to you, there is a question again by Anonymous who asks fact checkers sometimes fact check messages after it goes viral, and many people already have believed it and shared it. How to check to curb misinformation or disinformation? This is a question I thought I will also attempt to answer, because I run Media Buddhi, which is our media literacy initiative, which is kind of like the vaccine, if you can call it, for misinformation, which is that I guess most times fact checks are done after that message has gone viral. Before it goes viral, if you do a fact check, that's like giving oxygen to a fire where there is no fire that exists. So we tend to fact check only when it goes viral for that reason, because there is research that shows that if you just fact check something that has not gone viral, people will anyway get influenced, potentially get influenced by that fake piece of fake news or misinformation. And the other part of your question, how to check to curb misinformation or disinformation, it's just that this is a problem with, there's many ways of looking at the problem. One way of looking at the problem of misinformation and fake news, which is not a term we like to use anyway, is that it has got a supply side, the problem, and a demand side. The supply side is all the misinformation that is being created, and we try to do that. We try to fix that by doing fact checks and all of that, and not just fact checks, but also writing explainers, for example. On the other hand, to deal with the demand side of the problem, which is people who like to share, even though they don't have any bad intentions, but they share this because they believe it is their duty to share it. For that, what we do is we try to educate them. So these days, it's not just enough to be literate. We need to be media literate as well and digitally literate as well. So if you have anything to add to that, either you, Nivedita, or Jency, do go ahead. But otherwise, I'm going to pass Shubham's question to you, Nivedita, about adverse effects of coronavirus and why mainstream media doesn't always cover. That's a question I can also attempt to answer that question. Jency can also try to attempt that question. But it's over to you, Nivedita.
So going back to your previous question, the first one that you said, how to curb misinformation when it's gone viral already. I think I will use now what my mom has started doing. She has started asking anybody who forwards a message to her on WhatsApp saying, can you give me a source? Can you give me news link? She just types that and she sends it. And when there is no reply from the other side, is when she alerts me, or she will tell me that this is I got it on my I got it on my friends group, I got it on my school group. I think that question is very simple and very important. What is the source? What is your source? Whether it's an image, whether it's a news article, whether it's a data set or a graphic, what is your source for it? Where did you get it from? Is very important. If it passes on, if it goes down the chain, we will realize that eventually there was no source, and somewhere somebody down the line will sit and question that everything that we get is not true. And asking questions about it is maybe the first step towards curbing misinformation, especially on our own family and in our own circles.
Right.
Coming back to the question about the role we have in the question was, there have been so many questions regarding adverse effects of corona vaccine and deaths that have been around the country that Indian mainstream media doesn't cover. What is your role in it? I'm not sure what if the question says what is our role in talking about the effects of the vaccine and the deaths around it. We have done stories around the efficacy of a vaccine at each trial stage, if approval has been received by any vaccine that is coming into the country, whether and also India's the vaccines that India first started administering, Covaxin and Covishield. The efficacy we've done stories saying the third phase results are not out. We've never said that just the vaccines have been released and go get it. We have raised questions where they are pertinent and important. And about the deaths, we do have a vaccine death related story. If that is what your role question means, we have been constantly reporting on these cases without and in a way that it also doesn't create or add to the already existing vaccine hesitancy.
Okay. Right. Thanks for that. I just want to do a time check. It's 6:47. I think by around 6:50, we'll stop taking questions, and we'll of course answer all the existing questions. So if you have any burning question, just put it in the chat box right now. By 6:50, I'll just cut it off. In the meantime, Amoga Varsha has asked a question and has also answered Rohit Kumar's question in partially. So Amoga, I'm going to come to you towards the end. Rohit's question, how do we decide whether a fact checker is 100% accurate? As Jency again said, Rohit, we provide the evidence. We don't just make a claim. We also say to you how we came to that conclusion. So if you do a little, like Amoga says, getting a little bit of basic technical skills, you can learn from the internet and cross-check it. So technical skills are as simple as how do you do a reverse image search, or how do you use maps to verify something. You could learn all of those things there are YouTube videos that teach you as well. So I'm going to consider that question as having been answered. Amoga, I'll come to your question a little later. Again, Anonymous asks a question, Jency, what do you do when you make a mistake? Do you acknowledge it publicly? How many mistakes have you made? These are interesting questions.
There are too many questions that one question, but if you look at our methodology section on the site, we very transparently mention what we do when there are mistakes made. And we have put corrections a few times. I wouldn't say many times, because if we keep making corrections all the time, then our readers will lose trust in us. That does not mean that if we know that we have made a mistake, we hide it or we choose to paper over it. No, that's not what I meant. What I meant is that our process in itself is so foolproof, and there are multiple eyes looking at each story before we hit that publish button, that over the last 4.5 years, with great pride, I can say that there have been very few occasions when we had to put an editor's note. So to answer that question, we put up an editor's note, which clearly mentions that what we reported earlier, there is a slight modification in it. And that's how we put out the correction. And if there is an error we have made, we will regret the error. But if it is just an incremental information that we are adding, probably, we did not have a quote when we were talking to someone and that person decided not to speak. Sometimes after we file the story, the person will call us and say that, can you please add my quote? And because of that clarification that the person is giving, the story might actually be a bit more nuanced than what it was earlier. Then we will put out an editor's note very clearly mentioning that this is the clarification that we received. So these are the corrections. We are very transparent about it. We mention it. I don't think there have been any occasion, at least in my memory, where we had to drop an entire story because of an error we made. No, that does not happen at Boom at all. That does not mean that it may not happen at Boom in future, but if it happens, we will be honest with the reader and we will tell them that we went wrong on it and we will regret the error and we will modify the story.
Yeah, I also want to add that, there is this abbreviation VIA, VIA or VIA, which stands for verification, independence, accountability. Now, how can you tell forget Boom fact check, but how can you tell if any media organization is accountable, is acknowledging their mistakes? If you see that policy, if you see occasionally on at the end of the story, you will see lines like a previous version of the story incorrectly said this, but we have changed that mistake. Then it is a sign that you can trust that website because they're being accountable. Because on the internet, it's very easy to simply rewrite or overwrite on your mistake, right? It's not like print, which has already been printed, and that mistake is there for everyone to see. So when you see a website, like Jency was saying, that we actually put in an editor's note, it is a sign that this is an accountable website. Similarly, it's the same thing for independence and verification. Obviously, as fact checkers, everything we put out is verified. So that is what I wanted to add to that. Okay, so a couple of more questions. I think it's 6:50. We're not going to take any more questions, but all the questions that are there, we're going to answer. Okay. Let me just see what I can give you. Is there a long-term solution? Kanchan Kaur asks, is there a long-term solution to dealing with misinformation? Jency, I'm going to give that to you, but I also have a view on this, so I'm going to go with that view as well in some time. And let me just, in the meantime, pick up something else to ask Nivedita.
So, Kanchan's student Nivedita is sitting here, so maybe she should answer this. Kanchan always puts us in a kind of a fix. I think she loves doing this with all her students and with all of us, whom she knows very well. Kanchan, to answer your question, I think you are the long-term solution to deal with misinformation. You all are preparing, future journalists. Please train them in a manner in which they are able to fight this battle very well. Yes, that was on a lighter note, but otherwise, see, as long as quality of information online does not improve, there will always be this asymmetry when it comes to how people perceive and understand. So which is where, Venkatesh, the work that you do as far as media literacy and what Kanchan does in training young minds are so important. Media literacy, because we are reaching out to a far wider audience. We are reaching out to senior citizens, reaching out to students, reaching out to school students, trying to reach various other sections of the society who want to understand how should they judge any information that they get on their devices. That is one side of it. There has to be some form of accountability that probably our political system and our politicians have to come, and that's where civil society activists and civil society people would have to come and work with parliamentarians, and probably through various other mechanisms that are available, whereby this kind of political misinformation, which actually is the most dangerous form of misinformation, and from where probably a lot of communal misinformation and disinformation spreads, that is curtailed and curbed to an extent. Unless all these things happen in tandem, I think we will continue to see a lot of misinformation continuing over a long period of time.
Yeah. I also want to add, Kanchan, two thoughts specifically. I mean, there are people who claim that there is a technological solution in sight, just like spam. There's a solution for spam, and it was very successfully applied. And spam is no longer such a major issue for us in emails. So much so that the email newsletter has made a comeback. So, I mean, we've so successfully dealt with the spam issue. So that people say there's going to be a technological issue. I'm not sure about that. I do believe, however, that in the long term, we will be rid of this problem simply because we'll all become literate enough to understand. In the workshops, I've now realized in the beginning, about 3-4 years ago, people would still believe everything on WhatsApp. I'm not saying they don't believe what's on WhatsApp. They do still believe everything that they see on WhatsApp, but they also know that this should not be believed. They're already asking questions. So this is a process that is going to continue, and we're going to reach a post misinformation stage in our lives. I don't know when that is going to happen, but I'm pretty confident that it's going to happen. Okay, Nivedita, 2 questions back to back for you. One is B. Harshit asks, is there any professional competition among fact checkers? Like, who does fact checking fast, or who is more famous, or fact checking that goes on organically? That's one question, and that's by B. Harshit. And then I'll ask you another question, which is for data-backed stories. Do you rely on what the government shares, or are there multiple avenues for cross-verification of data? So you can take either of those questions first.
So about competition between fact checkers, there is competition between fact checkers, like between any media outlet, like between any company, like Amazon and Flipkart. There is competition between fact checkers. I will not deny it. It is also very visible on most platforms. And given that there are more fact checkers now than there were 4 years ago, obviously there is more. The competition itself has increased. Faster fact checks, quicker ones, meeting the deadline. I think internally there might be some pressure if somebody else has published it, but till each fact checker has stuck to their processes and not deviated from missed out a step just to get their story out there, just to be the first one to publish, then I think we are fine. Till then we are fine. I think Boom does that really well, even if a lot of people on Twitter have pointed out that XYZ has done it first. Our story has in most instances been far more in depth and far more has multiple sources, multiple verification levels. So if that's the that's the criticism we have to receive, that we are slow because we did a better job at it, then we'll take it. The second, okay. What was the second question?
It's right above Harshit's question, which is for data-backed stories. Do you rely only on what the government shares, or are there multiple avenues for cross-verification of data?
I think our data fact checker would roll his eyes at the idea that if he trusted just the government fact checks, just the government provided data, I don't think doing that. It is one of the sources, I would say. We look at wherever possible additional sources. If there are no additional sources, at least getting an expert code to verify whether the government data is right, whether the ratio that they have mentioned, whether the numbers they have mentioned are proper, are scientific, are in line with what is being presented. So those are the additional fact checks that we do when there is no additional source of data available, when there's no secondary source of data available.
Okay. Yes. Right. And I just want to re-ask Harshit's question, which is, the question also was, are there any professional competitions? As in, is there like a fact-checking competition where there's a prize of what, I don't know what, 50,000 rupees?
I wish there was. Then we could get one. So yeah, there is.
I mean, to my knowledge also.
Is there one? I'm not sure though. I don't think there is.
No, I don't think so. There are any awards. Yeah. Most of the journalism awards don't even consider fact-checking as a vertical. And they may be having their valid reasons for it. Not that we are too worried about it, or that we are waiting to be awarded by any of these institutions or companies. If there is an award, we will definitely enter it. If there is no award, we are fine with doing the work that we are doing, because we love what the responses that our readers give us. I think that's the best award we get. And the responses that we get from our readers are often very immediate. When we debunk a very popular piece of misinformation, readers do write to us, and they love us for that, and they immediately respond to us, and they give us feedback, and they tell us that there are many readers who tell us how we could have done it better. And that's the best response that any journalist can get from their readers, who are always and constantly engaging with them.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Another question, Jency, why are there random ads on your website? Over time, if members increase, would you go ad-free?
Of course, we can go ad-free, but the members have to increase. So, which is why we are doing the membership program. So please, go to our membership page and subscribe to our membership plan. It's only 99 rupees per month, much cheaper than what probably you would spend on, going out and eating out or having a cup of coffee. You can actually help us do our work better. Yes, and that's a good question. We can remove those ads once we have enough stream of revenue which is coming in from our readers, and that's the whole reason why we are doing all these conversations, speaking to you, trying to engage with you, also trying to build a community which we are building on Facebook and Twitter. And over a period of time, we would be able to also go ad-free as well.
Great. Let's hope we reach that stage where we get lots of support from our readers and members. Okay, Jency, I'm going to give Amoga's question to you, Amoga Varsha's question, which is in the Q&A. He says, has there been any instance by Boom where it has picked the information based on intuition or as an educated guess, which turned out to be true? And then he gives a rationale for why he came up with this question. While you think about that, I'm going to ask, go to Nivedita. And Nivedita, there's a question. It's a 6:48 p.m. question by Anonymous. Fact checkers sometimes do a reverse search and say that this photo does not belong to this incident. Don't you think if the incident is true, the fact check makes it a downplay? I'm not 100% sure what is the meaning of this question, but I'll just give it to you anyway about the first part, which is, sometimes we do a reverse search and say that this photo does not belong to the incident. Does that happen often?
Venkatesh, to answer Amoga Varsha's question, if I've understood it properly, we don't pick any information based on intuition at all. If that's what his question is, see, we have to receive a claim. We have to see this claim probably somewhere on Twitter or Facebook. There's another step in between which probably our readers should understand why we decide to fact check, sometimes why we don't decide to fact check. So if someone is sending us a claim on WhatsApp, on our WhatsApp helpline, tip line, what we do is we also go and check whether this is viral on Twitter and Facebook, and if it is viral on WhatsApp, whether any one of us have received it or not. If it is not viral, then definitely it goes lower on our priority list. But otherwise, there is no educated guess or there's no intuition. Of course, whenever we see something, like if someone sends us a video or an image and there is a text going along with it, we look at the video and image, and usually I think 90-95% of the times we do understand from our past experiences that there is something wrong with the video or the image. That's a skill that we have built over a period of time. But that does not mean that we will write a story based on that intuition. We still have to back it up with facts. And this is what I was saying some time back. Despite all that intuition and the educated guess and all the fact-checking processes that we would have followed, if we are not 100% sure, that story will not be published. That story will remain in the queue and it will not be published till we are completely sure about it.
Okay. Nivedita, your turn.
Yes,
back to that question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've understood in part what the person is trying to ask. And no, I do not think that, fact checking a photo, if it firstly, if it is not viral, we will not do it. If it's just like one stray person, stray tweet, stray post, tweeting that this image does not belong to the XYZ, suppose post poll violence, suppose Delhi riots, suppose Kashmir, post the abrogation. So if it is not viral, one, we will not fact check it. If it is viral, we do mention the true incident. There has never been a case where even during the post poll violence, we did mention that there has been violence happening. There have been incidents of these were these are the real incidents of violence that happened in West Bengal after the elections. In addition to the fact check, we do mention the true incident, and by doing so is how we ensure that the real incident is not downplayed. That even though we are saying that this XYZ image, this video does not belong to the recent incident, but that does not mean that the recent incident did not happen. I hope that answers the question. I don't think it downplays the true incident.
Okay. Well, yeah, I hope that question was answered as well. Jatin Gandhi has asked a question which I'm going to put towards the end. It's not in the Q&A, it's in the chat, which is about have advances in fact-checking tools kept pace with the needs of the industry. We'll come to that towards the end. For the moment, Abhishek Srivastava asks a question. Is fact-checking just about using technical tools, image search, reverse image search, video keyframe analysis? Isn't it about giving a new dimension or process to traditional journalism, he asks. In other words, at the end of the day, fact checkers have the responsibility and the right to go beyond he said or she said and give an opinion, which is a conclusion. So what do you think of that, Jency?
See, there are many fact checkers who put opinion in their stories. You will not find that at Boom. We are not going to change the way we do our process as far as fact checking is concerned. The reason being, if you start putting opinion, and that is Boom's opinion or the reporter's opinion, over a period of time, you will find that there is an unconscious bias which is always creeping in, and that will be very visible, and that does impact the brand over a period of time. And at the end of the day, our readers will not trust us anymore. There will only be one section of the political divide or the ideological divide who will always want to read your stories, while there will be others who will say that we can't trust you. There are many people who are centrists, who really want facts to be presented and not any ideological opinion to be provided in the story. So yes, we will definitely go beyond technical tools. We just don't do Google reverse image search and Invid and all of that. We definitely do classical old style journalism as well, where many times we send our reporters on the field. They meet people, they ask them what has happened. We call up cops to find out whether a case has been filed, what are the details that have been filed. There are many people who have made a counter to this and have said, so how do you trust cops in this country? Because cops will always pander to the government to the party in power. Yes, that's true. But when there is an FIR filed, that is public information, right? And that is public record. So you have to report it based on the information that you have in public record. But that does not mean that we only rely on that. We will definitely speak to the victims. We will speak to probably the person who has been accused as well to find out what has happened. So there are, based on the story and based on what are the nuances to the story, we will definitely look at multiple sources. In fact, there are many a times we have also spoken to local reporters who are out there in the field, in some of the villages, where we do not have a network and we can't reach. And those have been our additional sources of information that we've used to fact check a story. So there are multiple sources that we use. And yes, as far as opinion is concerned, you will never find opinion in a Boom story.
Yeah, I also would like to add, this is a very interesting question for me as well, Abhishek. And I will think about it and perhaps try to answer it on Twitter or something in a different way, because this gets into the area of also a little bit about media literacy, and it gets into the area of commentary on the state of journalism. So as fact checkers, we're very, very clear, but there are also other elements to your question that need to be answered. Okay, we have about 3 questions left. I'm going to do a quick scan to see if there's anything I missed. Meanwhile, Colonel Udupa says that it took him almost a month to fact check something himself. and prove that whatever he had forwarded was false. And he's willing to share the details. So his contact details are also on this chat. So anyone interested, please reach out to the Colonel. Meanwhile, Jency, a question again for you from Raghavan Srinivasan. Fake news travels widely and fast, but the fact check does not. How to make sure the correct version spreads better and faster?
Yeah, that's true, Raghavan. That's a problem that we all battle with. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, there's an MIT study also which looked at misinformation and fact-checking stories that, and how they performed against each other. And what you've mentioned is completely true. I guess the only way to do this better is to improve the delivery time. What we still struggle with, and I can say this not just about Boom, but about everyone, all the other fact checkers as well, because we often speak to each other. The challenge is to always get the misinformation on day zero itself and fact check it and put it out on all forms of social media. And this is a responsibility that probably readers also have along with us. Please pay more attention to stories that are fact checks. Don't dismiss them as something that probably are of low value. The other way you can make it better is, as far as our responsibility is concerned, we are always looking at newer formats in which we can come, whether it's a video, whether it's a GIF, whether it's a very interesting image or a card that we can use. There are many platforms like Instagram and many of the platforms where there are younger people who are using shorter methods of conveying stories because people don't have the time to read 300, 400, 500 word stories. So we are also looking at that. But as far as the reader is concerned, on whichever WhatsApp groups you are on, please make it a point to be the resident fact checker in those groups. We cannot reach everywhere, but you can reach each of those groups. So please, read our stories, subscribe to us, take our membership, engage with us on a daily basis, look at our stories, and push out our stories on all the groups that you are on, so that over a period of time, and I've seen this happening, not just with me, but with many other people who have told me that over a period of time, those WhatsApp groups where they were sharing fact check stories, the quality of information, quality of conversation on those groups have improved vastly.
Right. Okay. Frank had asked a question which you already answered, Jency, but for those who didn't see it, I'm just going to say, Frank says, don't you think that it's important to educate youngsters of fact checking, say at secondary school and high school level? And as you replied, Jency, we do have a wing called Media Buddhi, and that's exactly what we're doing. Not just young students. We believe we should start in middle school, though there are claims that we should start with children who are as young as 7 or 8. But we're starting with children in middle school and upwards, all the way to senior citizens. And absolutely, I bring this up because there is Kanchan's question as well, which is there something we can do that will be more long lasting? So the short term, so there's a short term, medium term, and long term aspect to this problem. And the medium term, I suppose, is education. This should be at school level. And it's not just about quote unquote fake news. Digital literacy is very, very important, because our children, they get exposed to algorithms on YouTube where they're recommended more and more extreme videos. Online, they believe anything that you see. So we've got to educate people that once you do a Google search, don't necessarily believe everything. There is something that you need to say. And Jency wants to add to that as well.
Well, there is one question that I was hoping someone would ask, but unfortunately no one has asked. So let me volunteer. There are many people who often wonder that what is the role of the platforms, right? And we do work with a lot of the platforms. And yes, there is a role that the platforms do have. Platforms cannot escape after seeing the damage that have been caused by misinformation spreading on across platforms, and you cannot escape the responsibility. And this is what we tell platforms every time we engage with them, that they have to build social responsibility into every code they write. Anything that they do to build engagement, which is completely, which goes viral in nature, should always consider the social impact of it. And I do believe that if fact checkers can do whatever we are doing, technology platforms can do much more, because they are writing these algorithms which have brought so many people together, sitting in different parts of the world, making things viral, across. So technology platforms can definitely do a much better job than what they're doing right now.
Sorry, that is a reference to a long-term solution as well. Nivedita, I want you to think about, similar to Jency, are there any questions you were hoping to be asked, but nobody asked you? Now's your chance, or, let me ask Jency that question by Jatin, which is, let me just scroll up. Have the advances in fact-checking kept pace with the needs of the industry?
Maybe not, Jatin, because the kind of problems that we are seeing today, we definitely need better technological tools to find out. Like, for example, on some social media platforms, we are still not able to find out who's the originator of a piece of misinformation. Yes, there are ways to do it. Like, we manually try to figure out and use various other tools to probably come to a best understanding of from where it could have started. But I'm sure that there could be tools that could be created to find that out and probably hold them more accountable. Because once people know that they can be traced, then there will be better accountability. I'm not talking about WhatsApp at all, because WhatsApp by nature, the platform was always built to be end-to-end encrypted. Now that's a different debate altogether. The other major problem that we may have, and this is something that everyone has been talking about, and that is about deepfake videos. That is something that gives sleepless nights to every fact checker, because we really don't know how we will be able to address that problem. We have found via media, we have found various other jugaad methods to figure that out, but we really don't have a foolproof mechanism to find out if a video is deepfake or not. Now, that is one area where I would encourage, researchers and technology experts to work with fact checkers to come with new tools that will address these problems as they emerge in future.
Okay, Nivedita and Jency, I might bowl you a googly, after I asked Nivedita. But yeah, these are the last two questions. Nivedita, any final thoughts? Any questions you wished people had asked?
I think one of the questions in another panel discussion that was asked is, why do we need fact checkers? Why fact checking? Why not journalists themselves reporting facts? And I think that's a very interesting question. That's a question a lot of young journalists are also asking. And I would say I would in fact say to any young journalist that be a journalist first, be a reporter, be a deskie, work in a newsroom, and then come into fact checking. Not to see the difference, I'm not saying that, hey, this is some ultra nice universe, not for that, but to know that how you can take your reporting skills and use it to fact check, how both don't walk separately, they go hand in hand. And why the need for fact checkers when journalists themselves can do it? Journalists can make mistakes, they do make mistakes, whether they're intentional, whether they are honest mistakes, but there needs to be somebody who will say that this was wrong, this was reported wrong, the source is not correct. Where did you, somebody who asks them, somebody who asks even the media the question, somebody who is there to as a watchdog for each and every sector which is providing information, not just the platforms, not just the government, even news. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Right. Googly question for Jency, which is, it's related to the future of fact checking. How long do you see yourself being a fact checker?
Well, I don't think I can answer that question, because I don't know what will happen tomorrow or the next moment. We will continue to enjoy the work that we do. I mean, if you're asking me individually, I quite enjoy the work that I do right now. As compared to all the other things that I've done in the past, whether working for television channels, reporting on the desk, or working for a digital newsroom and a print newsroom. This is one of the best stints that I've had. And I quite enjoy doing what I'm doing. Our best time is during elections, because during elections, people really do understand the importance of a fact checker. The in-between period is when all these existential questions keep troubling us, that, oh, why do you need to be a fact checker? What is fact checking, whether it is important or not? whenever there is an election, and this election, we know that, a few months back, just before the West Bengal elections, no one was asking this question. But every few months, there are elections in this country. And that is when fact checkers are very deeply required to correct the kind of narratives that are put out and to fact check politicians across the spectrum. One last point I would like to mention here, just to leave a thought for the reader. Before 2017, and I can say it with reasonable confidence, whenever a ruling party politician would say something, or probably someone, for example, whether it's the prime minister, the home minister, the finance minister, or probably a state chief minister, whenever they used to rattle some data, the mainstream media used to dutifully report it. And that's expected of them. They have to report what probably the person has said. But no one was fact-checking those claims. It's only when fact-checkers came on board did we start looking at the speeches. And I would like to challenge anyone who says that it is otherwise. We were the first ones, and when I say we, I don't mean just Boom, but fact-checkers across the board, even mainstream media fact-checkers who have worked in their newsrooms. We were the first ones who said, yes, just because a politician is saying it, or someone who's probably in the ruling government is saying it, it does not need to be true. We started looking at data. We started looking at their own data. We started looking at the parliament questions and answers that are, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha question answers. We started comparing it with data that is publicly available. So this is the importance of the work we do. And I think, there will be various other areas where our skills will be found useful.
Right. I was just going to end on that, but I did notice that Shubham Lunawat did make a comment about, his personal struggles with the whole lack of accurate information on coronavirus. So, and he asked a question, why doesn't the media cover these questions about, side effects and so on? And I just want to say to that, which is, a lot of health related misinformation is in the area of opinion, right? If someone says that you drink ginger tea and it will cure coronavirus, it's essentially an opinion. It's also not true. But sometimes it becomes more challenging to debunk health misinformation as opposed to straight up, an image that has been photoshopped or anything. You can easily say, well, this has been photoshopped and this is not really true. But with a lot of opinion related misinformation, it becomes trickier. So in that case, what we do is we present the context more than anything else. And that's how we deal with that kind of misinformation. And mainstream media really has not been in the business of dealing with misinformation or uncertain information. But increasingly they are. They followed the lead of fact checkers. They also are doing a lot of explainers, which we also do. So that is an answer to that. And on that note, I think we'll end. Thank you so much. I must, of course, not fail to mention that we have created a community called TruthSeekers. That's why this is called the TruthSeekers Fest, where we are encouraging people to come and ask such questions. And we don't see it as you're asking us questions. We think of it as a conversation that we will continue to carry on offline, for example, or on a Facebook group, Truth Seekers. And you continue to ask us questions. We'll continue to ask you questions. So again, think of it as a conversation and not as a one-way kind of thing. And of course, if you can, please do support us in our membership as well. Your support really goes a long way. And on that note, thank you so much for spending 1.5 hours with us this evening. Thank you to Jency and to Nivedita as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Venkatesh. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Venkatesh.
Thank you. I think we'll be here for another 2 or 3 minutes. But yeah, thank you. We've finished. Okay, we've finished. We've stopped recording as well. And so, yeah, again, thank you so much, people who joined us.